Hey everyone, Phobos here, coming at you with a build guide for Freezing Pulse for Totem for 3.13. So this is going to be a quicker one. If you want the more detailed one, it is. I'll post a link to it in the description, as well as the POB. But we're on Inquisitor right now, and the reason is basically Battle Mage. New Battle Mage node is super good. Allows us to get like a bunch of flat, and it's really strong. And Inquisitor just feels really good because it's so much more damage than Hyro, and damage is important because it allows us to freeze, gives us a lot more survivability. Hyro technically has a bit more effective health you can get out of it, but this build just feels safer when I play the two of them. So I really prefer to play this version. I think an Elementalist version would be the tankiest one, while still having pretty fucking good damage. I'll be making one of those at some point. I haven't got around to making it yet, so for now we're going with this. I'll go into the gear first, and then I'll look back at the passive tree. So the main thing with this build is that we're also incorporating new items from the season. So this is Maven's Helm. It's really cheap right now. It's actually super OP for this build. It's so much cheaper than the Aziri's Mirror, and it doesn't take up like either. The thing about Aziri's Mirror is it takes up a slot for damage, and it's something you're not going to be able to dual wield damage scepters or damage wands, it doesn't have a totem, an extra totem on it, right? So like that would be, you'd either use a totem thing here, like an extra totem and a damage scepter, and then you'd have one more totem. They do less damage individually, but you'd have more of them, or you'd do dual scepter like I'm doing to freeze better, essentially, and have one less totem. If you have the Aziri shield, you get neither of those options. You get a bit more energy shield. So not really ideal, right? With the helmet, we don't have to sacrifice any of that. We still get the hexproof, which is amazing as long as you have a blue ring in here, which is a cost we can easily make. Super easy to be able to use a blue ring in at least one of the slots. You can even use 2 blue rings on this build. If you notice, the only thing that I can even need from this is the dex. I could just do a life dex, or I could just get a ring with dex even, and put crafting bench life on it if I really needed. So you could actually get the crit immunity from this if you wanted, and that's probably the better play than what I have right now. It's just this isn't like completely updated, so that's something to keep in mind. And that way you would take effect of not only being hexproof, but take no extra damage from critical strikes as well. In addition to that, you have 24 all res, which is insane, 125 energy shield, which is definitely decent for a helm, because we'd be using a hybrid helm anyway, keep in mind. So we wouldn't have a ton of ES on the helm otherwise, so it's nice. The only thing you're really missing from this helm is life, and you have the damage is unlucky when you have a magic ring equipped, which is super strong. You can really feel that. And then the +2 damage to +2 to socket gems is insane, because you turn your level like 3 or 4 Enlighten into a 5 or 6, and that makes it so much easier to get mana for MOM, because this build kind of struggles with that a bit. You need to invest in mana, which I'll show you in a bit, because it's not like Hyro. You don't have a ton of regen, you don't have a ton of mana right out of the gate, so that is a little something that this build sort of struggles with. But yeah, we just have Precision in here, Clarity, Zealotry. Precision doesn't need to be in here. You can put it in something else if you want. You'll save a little bit of mana, because it's getting +2'd. Even though it is being affected by the Enlighten, I think it's probably would save you a little mana to take it out and put it in something else. But in your Clarity also doesn't need to be this high. So if you're really struggling on mana, you can just lower your Clarity level appropriate. You could probably even get away with something as low as 10. But in my situation, I kind of have a lot of mana, and it pretty much works as is. So that's about the helm, and of course we're pairing it with Coward's Legacy, because why not? We're completely unaffected by curses. We're hexproof, so why not toss the vulnerability on ourselves and get the low life? And just to prove to you that you still get the effect of the curses on you. We're at 216k right now. We have a self-flagnation in. We're still gaining curses, as you can see, and we go up to. I need to put my. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So we're at 302. See? So definitely still works with the Soul Mantle and everything like that. So yeah, this is just like a no-brainer belt, basically. It's just too much damage to pass up, essentially. Already went over the rings. The amulet is basically you're going to try and find something that has reduced mana reservation of whatever aura you're using. I'm using Zealotry for the, the build's doing tri damage, and the Zealotry just affects spell damage as a whole, so you don't have to worry about it only affecting cold, only affecting fire, only affecting lightning, etc. The base of this ideally would be like a dex base, but I can only find this with mana regen, so we just went with it. I allocated Storm Weaver for the anoint. There's a bunch of things you could anoint. You can anoint Flash Freeze down here. You can anoint like this Heartseeker. You can anoint Doomcast. There's so many anoint options. You could even you could path through this a different way, like path through here, grab the Shamanistic Fury and anoint this, or just anoint Shamanistic Fury. Some people like to anoint Totemic Zeal. I don't really like to do that as much. But there's so many anoints you can have. I just like the Stormweaver for the mana regen, the cold damage, and then the effective non-damaging ailments, which I'll get into in a bit with how we shock with this build. And then this is one that really benefited from the Metamorph Catalyst because it's mana and health. A lot of the mods on here, the Zealotry is affected by mana. It's originally 25%, goes to 30%. There's mana regen on the implicit, there's mana regen on the item, there's mana on the item, and there's life on the item. So the Catalyst really helped this out. If you can, and you have a neck similar to this, definitely invest Catalyst into it. And it's pretty good. The other items right here are the boots. Standard boots, doesn't have the right enchant. The enchant you want is critical strike chance. If you haven't killed recently or haven't crit recently, that's the best one. The second best one is flat lightning if you haven't killed recently. And I like to put placement speed on here just because it makes it feel a bit better because we're not getting as much placement speed, remember, as we are normally with Hierophant. You could probably get away with without putting this on there if you really need the extra res, though. And you obviously do want to try and get some Chaos res, especially this league, because Chaos is kind of a problem when you're in those small ritual zones and the Chaos thing spawns. In terms of the gloves, the ideal base here would probably be Elder base for the projectile speed mod, but the thing about this is that you can get some really chonky gloves here with a lot of resists on them by using the Temple Incursion mod that gives the fire against burning enemies and the fire resist mod in one go, so you're getting damage and a super high resist. Makes it really easy to get tri-res on them, which they have, which really helps with your resist because it can be a little bit tight, especially if you were to try to be using 2 blue rings here, right? Another thing you can do to help out with resist, you can catalyst. Like if you really needed to, you would get a super resist heavy ring here and catalyst it for resistance. And then you'd have this one be a blue or something like that. The 50 strength on here is not super relevant. You could also swap this out with a resist. It's just I didn't need to in this case. So, I figured I'd take the extra life and damage. And I'll talk to you how strength converts to damage in a second. But that's basically the idea behind the gloves. And remember, the fire damage is actually a lot better than you'd think because it's basically just true damage because we are penning all elements with Inevitable Judgment most of the time. In terms of the weapon, these are pretty good. Crafted this myself. What you want to do is just grab a crit multi, or you can really do any thing that's fractured on like a scepter like this. You want to pay attention to the actual physical damage roll on the scepter, not the DPS, but the top end. Like you want the most average damage because that part of it does get converted to added to spells as well with Battle Mage. As you can see, if I mouse over this, there's some physical damage on here. See 783 to 1167. So definitely something to keep in mind. And you want a good base like that, like an Opal Scepter's fine. There are better ones, but this is what I found. This has a high crit multi-fracture, and then you spam Deafening Essences of Hatred, or you can put the lightning one or the fire one, but I'd stick to the lightning or the cold one. Cold is obviously just much better for freezing, right? And as you can see, we ended up getting a +1 and some mana on it, and I was just like, fuck it, I'll just craft on it. It's not perfect, not the best you can get. You can do a lot better, but pretty damn good for now, and a super strong weapon you can craft really easily thanks to Battle Mage. So that's just another good thing about Battle Mage in general. The second weapon, basically just like a stat stick for casters, right? I harvest crafted this. It's honestly really fucking good. The fire damage is actually nice because it allows us to easily proc the damage on this because the enemy will already be burning, having the fire damage on the offhand. And yeah, it's just like a super strong thing. I usually try to get my offhand with the Takati mod, the chaos damage to spells and the cast speed paired. And we ended up getting really lucky. I need to actually craft this with the final thing to get more spell damage on it, but it's pretty much fine for now. And then the links are controlled destruction, freezing pulse, hypo, faster casting, multiple totem, and increased critical damage. For these, I would suggest just a path of building it yourself, depending on what stat levels you're at. You may have certain gems being better than other gems. Another thing, too, is if you're ever going to corrupt your soul mantle and you don't want to buy a bunch of them, you'd probably just want to replace faster casting or one of the weaker supports, which would probably be faster casting, with added cold damage. And like, see, if you get awaken added cold, it'll be a DPS increase, but even if you had a normal added cold, it'll be less damage than if you were to have faster casting. But you can do a better Ice Spear swap because you can swap in Ice Spear with Freezing Pulse, and then you can swap in greater multiple projectiles with the added cold damage. And see, right now you'd have to swap it in for Hypo, and there's not much of a damage increase there because Hypo is already so good. So having 2 green is helpful for the swap for sure. And you need the red in here now for the multiple totem, since we're not getting it from Hyro or anything like that. Popping over into the tree, not much different from a standard totem tree, I guess. Over here, we did some shenanigans where instead of going through the top like this and coming down, we went right through here. This is just a saving point mechanism and has a lot to do with the fact that we had to grab Pain Attunement. Before Pain Attunement, I actually grabbed Prodigal Perfection. Went up through here, you can grab a lot of damage, and there's some resist and obviously more mana with Prodigal Perfection. So we kind of came through here, grabbed Throat Seeker, grabbed this. Didn't have this node, didn't have these. This was basically this cluster right here, which is slightly better. And yeah, so depending on the gear level you're at, you can mix things up a bit. As for the cluster jewels, we're using a Voices. If you don't have a Voices, what you would do is you would, again, pass through the top here. You're closer to this. You take this, and then you can either drop one of the clusters, which is what I was doing at first. I had Cold Conduction and the Taunt one, or you can do... You definitely want Cold Conduction. I would say the Taunt or the Onslaught one is kind of like up to you what you want. And you would have 1 medium coming out of here and 1 medium coming out of here. If you have the points for it and you feel like sacrificing other things, you can get a large in this, right? A large cold or spell damage one, and then you branch off to 2 clusters on this one and 1 cluster on this one. You can also, if you get a Megalomaniac that's really good, that can really help. You can put like 2 of the main nodes on a Megalo. I would say the main nodes you want are Cold Conduction, Shrieking Bolts for the Taunt, this is for the Shock, and then this is for the Onslaught. These other nodes paired with them are just like really nice 1-point notables that give you a lot of damage, but they're totally not like needed in any final sense, right? So just something to keep in mind. You can get like this right here and this on a Megalo, and that really helps. And then you just put this on the other side, and you're pretty much Gucci. So just be looking out for good Megalos, but obviously, those are not like stable options. So just something to keep an eye out for. This is 7 voices, by the way, so very affordable. 5 is even pretty affordable now. And then if you wanted a Watcher's Eye, you would just put it in here. I don't currently have one for the build right now, though. And in terms of the Legion Jewels, there's since we're not doing the Totem Leech with this build, it's not as good, I feel like, to use the Energy Shield one that gives you a bunch of ES for your health. You could still do that. You would gain a bit of effective health, but I don't think it's that good. So right now we're going to do a Hydra map. We're going to hope this is no regen, but if it is, we'll just swap our... No, this isn't the Hydra. This is a Phoenix. I want to show you what a tier 16 looks like. Looks like we're going to be fine, yeah. As you can see, freezes pretty much everything. Quite a substantial amount of time too. Does pretty good in these, honestly. Really no complaints. Pretty much just freezes everything. Keep in mind, this is actually with a level 20 freezing pulse. I'm not even gonna bother like doing any of the. I'll like do these, but I'm not gonna bother. Like doing any of the looting in the map, so I just want to get through it and show you guys really. I feel like the density in this feels kind of lacking, but no, Legion. So what I do for a Legion is I'll set the this down, right? I'll pump it up if you really wanna, and then I'll spread the totems out beforehand, activate the Legion, then put the crit mod on, or put the crit flask on like right at the last moment. Just seeing if I missed anything over here. It's probably just gonna spring on me at some point. That's weird. Looked like we got all of it, and it didn't. Main thing with the totem builds in general, in any build like this, you just want to keep moving, especially when doing things like Legion. As you can see, this is a bit of a clustered map, right? So you can also do things like that, where if you're in an open corridor like that, where it's tight, you can just dodge into a like a corner if you think there's a mob with projectiles there. Do this one, and then we'll do the breach, and we'll show you the boss. Nice thing about Hyro is it's like super easy, or in Inquisitors, it's super easy to keep your Diamond Flask up at all times, especially while going through the map. And honestly, the bosses die really fast. They most of the time will die inside the Diamond Flask. So we're also using Val Righteous Fire for bosses. I could have popped it multiple times already in here, but just I'm not used to it. And we're using it actually would make sense to he dead? I don't know. We didn't have many totems hitting him, unfortunately. He would have died a lot faster. Okay, so that's pretty much everything. It says 50 remaining, but I think it's just because I don't have a portal on me. But I'm just gonna portal to reset flasks. I'm gonna swap to Ice Spear just to show you guys. It's like a super easy swap, and this is a Shaper Guardian. So you put Rain of Splinters in place of one of these, and I have another jewel here that you can put in place of your other first snow, because your other first snow is no longer going to be benefiting you because you're not using Freeze Pulse on the boss. And like I said, you would be swapping this to GMP if you had 2 green there. Come back into the map, make sure we have our golem down. So I like to set our thing here. It's very easy to that was actually super sloppy. Took a lot of damage there, but you know, and we didn't stay in our thing for very long. Depending on, the one thing I want to say about Sigil Powers is it's very powerful, especially when you pre-charge it on an opening like that, and then you kind of just let rip on the boss. But it's really good for opening burst. You don't really want to commit to it hard, right? Because even though this is a decently big area, there's still not a ton of area. And if you really try and play in this too much, you will die on the build, because the build is a lot about mobility, and you have to be able to move and dodge. There's not a ton of inherent defense, right? It is a softcore build in that sense, where if you do get hit hard enough, you will just die. So you have to be constantly moving and dodging things, and trying to play around in the circle too much will get you killed. So just something to keep in mind there. But yeah, pretty good damage. Those are kind of unoptimally placed totems too. For Ice Spear, you want them at a certain range, and once the boss kind of closes in, you need to move them, because otherwise they're not going into the second form where they get 600% additional crit. So yeah, that's pretty much the map, and the build guide in short. Like I said, there's a longer one if you want more information, but this will probably do it for most people. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll be coming back to you with more build guides on other things and the Elementalist one hopefully soon. So see you guys later.